In this lesson, I want to talk about hashes. They are a fundamental thing in Ruby language. So in one of the previous lessons, we saw I'm going to navigate here to my code folder. So we saw this configuration app. So I'm going to open the configuration.rb. And this was the code that we did. So what it does is that it loads this file called program configuration, and I'm going to open that file as well. So here's the file, and the idea is that we have a configuration file. Like here we have color equals yellow, width, and then height. And we want to have these values inside our application. Let's say I don't know, we have an application that draws a square, and then we can define here how the size of the square and also the color that is going to be. Yeah, it's not going to be a square like this, but rather a rectangle. But I think you got the idea. So what this code does, and I didn't change anything. This is exactly the same code as the previous 2 lessons, I guess. I don't remember exactly. But it reads that file and it parses it in a way that we will have those values of color, width, and height put inside these variables. So if I basically this block of code here is what reads the file and parses it, so it extracts the values, so that the values will then be inside these 3 variables, and in the end it's going to print out the values. So if I run that code, ruby configuration.rb, it is going to run this program. So it's reading from the file. As you can see, the values are coming exactly from here. So if I change this file without changing the program, so without changing the Ruby code, the output is now changed. So width is reflected of what is inside the file, and this is just width times height, which is the area. And it's kind of ugly, this code. So if you look at it, the way it's processing, it's extracting the key and value, and then it has these ifs. So each new configuration that we want, suppose we would have a color, we would have background color and border color, let's say. We would do something like border color, let's put it like this, equals red. So if I wanted to do this, I would have to also create a new variable here called border, and let's use an underscore unknown. And then the way to go with it is that I would need to add a new if key equals, and then it was border color, and then do the variable assignment. So border color equals, and then value. And then if I wanted to print it here, I could do border color is, and then we do the string interpolation of the variable border color, and saving this. So remember, I put the border color as red, and then if I run this again, the border color is going to be here, so it's red. Now for every key in this, so if you think about this file, it's essentially a key value. So on the left side, you always have the keys, and on the right side, you have the value for that given key. So that's why I'm calling it key values. But for each new configuration I want to put in here, I'll have to create these new ifs. And this is kind of getting ugly. So this is not a proper way to do it. There's a better way, and it's by using hashes. So I want to show you how hashes work in a very practical way. And I will start by changing this code. So I won't write new code right now. I'm going to start changing this. And I'm going to insert a variable here called configuration. equals, and I'm going to do hash dot new. So this is going to create a new hash. So this variable is going to hold a object of the type hash. So to use it is, I'm going to go to here, and before this ifs, I'm going to do configuration, and then I'm going to use the same notation that we would use in arrays to index an element inside an array. I'm going to use the same thing to index an element inside a hash. And I'm going to explain soon what exactly a hash is. But I guess just by the code, you're going to understand it. So configuration and then key equals value. And now, after printing everything here, let me just put a separator, and then I'm going to put the configuration. So I added 3 lines of code. I added this one, configuration equals hash.new, which initializes this variable, and line 23 here, which says configuration at key. So the key, this is indexing this key inside configuration, equals this given value. And well, I lied, it's not 3 lines of code, it's 4 actually, because I put this separated. But and then here on the end, I put these puts to just printing out the configuration variable. So let me clear the screen with Control-C, or rather Control-L, and then I'm going to press up and run this code again. And now you see there that after our separator, it's printing this hash. So what is this? You see that this has loaded all these variables, or rather everything that is inside this file, it has loaded. So with 3 lines, if we consider the line that prints this, it would be 4 lines of code. But with 3 lines of code, I am being able to read this configuration inside this thing here that maybe you still are wondering what exactly it is. But you see, if I could just go ahead and remove these ifs, and it would still work. So I'm going to remove all those ifs. And I'm going to remove these variables as well. I'm going to remove those variables. And then I'm going to also remove, actually let me, instead of removing this, let me comment. So these lines are now, when the lines start with this symbol, it turns red, you'll see it turns red. It's a comment, so it's not code that is going to be executed. It's just a commentary, and the Ruby is just going to skip over these lines. It's not going to process them. So running it, well, I still have this separator, which I don't need anymore because there's nothing to be separated there. So clear the screen, run the program again. We can see here all this. So this is loaded here. And now, if you guessed, I think you can already guess what this is about. So you're guessing this notation is very similar to what an array is. So you're saying that this key thing here, this index at key, is being equal value. So what if I would say that the final caller is, and then instead of caller, I do configuration, and then I index the string caller. What is going to happen here? And you can probably already guess, right? You can probably already guess. Now let me put this separator again and run it, and you're going to see, yeah, right there. So final caller is, and then this is being executed. So the final caller is yellow. And here you can see this notation with curly brackets, where it's saying that caller, and then you have this symbol here. This is an arrow. So it's just an equal, and then larger than sign, but the idea of this is that it is an arrow. And then it's saying that color is yellow and border color is red and width is 30 and height is 4000. So with only one line of code, it's doing all of that. Only one line of code. If I remove this line, or if I comment it so it's not going to be executed, I'm not gonna and run the program, I'm gonna see the final color is, and then there's nothing there. And instead of having all the values here, it's empty. So the thing is that now if I want to add more configurations, I can just come over here and say, I don't know, let's say we're drawing that rectangle. So there would be a line width or line thickness. And that would be, I don't know, 10, let's say 10. And then if I save this, and I didn't notice that I didn't change anything in code, I just added it to this file. And if I run it, it's gonna be here. So line, it's just, if I make this larger, you can see it better. Line thickness is 10. And whatever I do here, line thickness, I could do it like this. Line underscore thickness is 10. Let me reduce this, or rather put this a little bit more to the right. So I'm gonna keep using this pattern of having it uppercase. So line thickness is 10. Now, yeah, this video is supposed to be about hashes, and then you're wondering. So what a hash actually is. A hash is a mapping. In other programming language, it would be called a map. And for some reasons in Ruby, it's called a hash, but it's the same thing. So it's a map. It maps keys to values. So just like we have here keys on the left side, so color is a key, border color is a key, width is a key, and height is a key, and line thickness is a key. For the key color, we are saying that we have the value yellow. And for the key width, we have the value 30. And what a map is, it is a data structure that stores that in that way. It has keys and values, and that's it. So if you think about an array is a sequence of things. So the way you declare an array in Ruby is like this. So you'd say A equals, and then you can say like 10 and foo and whatever. And then if you want to access the first element, it would be like this, A0. We saw this on the previous lesson. If you, so the value, this would evaluate to 10 because the first element on the array is 10. If I put it 1, it would evaluate to foo because that's the second element. And remember, arrays start at 0. So 0 is the first, 1 is the second, and 2 is the third, and so on. And A2, which is the third element, is going to be whatever. So in arrays, we have this. So a hash is similar to an array because it also uses this notation. However, instead of putting a number here, we are putting a string. So you're saying we want key at position color. That sounds weird, right? Because color is not a position. 2 is a position. It's the second or third position. And in a hash, you don't have numerical positions. You have you can have like strings. So configuration at position color, and you just saw what happens because I just did it like this, and you saw the results for it. So this is basically what a hash is. It's no more than this. It's not less than this. It's just that. So it's a simple data structure, and it's very fundamental in Ruby. It's used very widely. So it's really, really important. It's very simple, but it is really important. So you saw that previously I had here 4 variables, one for each key in this configuration. And then I just, if I wanted also to add line thickness, I would need to add yet another variable. So with a hash, I don't, like if you want the user to be able to add a variable to your program, you don't do that. Instead, you can use a hash, and you should use a hash for that. So if you think about it, what is essentially being done here is that the user is adding variables to your program, but these variables are not actually variables. But the user is able to do kind of what a variable does, right? So if you think about, for instance, this variable has a name, or we could call it a key, maybe. In a hash, you would call it a key. And it has a value, right? So the value for this is 0. But if you think about it, it's just a mapping. So it's mapping the name current line to the value 0. And inside a hash is the same thing. It's the same principle. The way it works inside your computer is going to be slightly different, but the principle is the same. So configuration is a hash, and then you say inside this hash you could call it variables, but it would be wrong. The name is not variables. You have keys. So here you have the key called color, and then you can have a value attributed for it. So I'm gonna just wipe this out. And instead of putting variables there, let's fix all these puts now. And what if we wanted to now show the width? So let's say width. We could do it like this. Width. And let me actually comment these things over here and run these again. So we can see final width is 30, and could do the same thing for the height. So it would be configuration and then height, and then if I run it, there it is. And I'm gonna skip over to this last one. So the area is, and then we have now width times height. So how do we do this? And if you go ahead and just do this, so width times, and then replace height with configuration height. So you're gonna see this is not gonna work. This is not gonna work because, so it's saying that no implicit conversion of string into integer. That is because the value that is contained inside this key is a string, not an integer. So we have to before proceeding here, we have to convert it. But we could store. So one way to fix it would be to just say like configuration width equals configuration width. So if you think about what this is doing, this is getting this value, and then it's assigning to this key. So if you think about this line of code is doing essentially nothing, and that's true, it's doing nothing. It's not going to change anything. But what I want to do here, I want to convert this to an integer. So I'm going to say to_i. So if I take configuration and then add key called width, and then I do dot to_i, so this is going to convert this to a integer, Now what's going to change is that the value that is going to be contained inside here, instead of being a string, is going to be an integer. And I want to go ahead and do the same for height. So height, and it's a string, equals configuration height dot to_i. That is gonna convert it to an integer as well. And let me clean this and run it. And now it's good. Now it's good. So this problem is solved, and this code just remained as it is, because now this is an integer. It's just an integer. So the value that is inside can be anything, just like a variable. A variable can contain any kind of value. It can be a string. So if you think about this variable here contains a string, which is the content of the file. This variable is an integer, also this one. And this variable is a hash. So as variables can have different types of values inside, the values for given keys inside a hash also can have any kind of value, any kind. There's no restriction there. What is actually funny, let me show you, is that, so I'm at the very bottom here, I'm printing this hash, right? So I'm gonna try and do something here, but it's probably gonna crash my computer, I think. Let's see how it goes. I'm gonna say configuration, and then I'm gonna do whatever, so it doesn't really matter, equals configuration. So I'm saying that this key inside this hash is gonna be the whole hash. So I think this is gonna break. Let's run it. No, it didn't break. So yeah, this is not problematic at all. However, this is problematic because well, I thought it was going to be problematic but you see here on whatever is not actually printing this. It's just using this weird notation. This is not valid code here. This is not valid code at all. And yeah, I thought this was going to break because it was going to print itself again, and then while printing itself, it would have to print the whatever key again, and then again, and again, and again, and it would be an infinite execution there, and then it would crash the computer. But it was smart enough to detect that and not commit that mistake. Anyway, continuing here. So I think you got the basic idea of what a hash is. And there's not much more than that for a hash. So I'm going to tell you to go to that documentation website that I showed you before, to Ruby docs, and take a look at hash and look at the documentation. It's going to have a lot of methods or functions that you can use for hash. And let me actually show, I think one of it. So I'm gonna close this and create a new file because I want to show you this function and one more thing. So I'm creating a new file. Let me save it somewhere. So I'm gonna save in code and I'm gonna call it hash.rb. And let me execute it. It's not gonna do anything. All right. So it's a clean slate here. And I'm gonna say, I don't know, conf. I'm gonna call it conf equals, and then I'm gonna say open curly bracket and close curly bracket or curly brace. I don't really know. And then I can say conf color. I'm gonna use color again, equals, and let's say blue now. And then puts conf. So if I run this code, what is gonna happen? You're gonna see this notation again. So I wanna tell you that this and these are exactly the same thing. So a hash in Ruby is so important and is so common that people use hashes that it has its own notation. And now let me tell you about something about array. So if you have an array, you can initialize an array like this, or you can initialize an array like this. Remember that in Ruby, uppercase is different from lowercase. So this, because this A is uppercase, so this is totally different from this. I'm just naming this thing. So in Ruby, you have an array, and you can do an array like this. These two lines here, they are equivalent. There's absolutely no difference. Also, these two lines here, they are absolutely the same thing. There's no difference there. All right. So you see that it's not really common for types to have their own, let's say, their own notation in the language itself. But some very core types they have. So array is so important that it has its own notation, which is square brackets. And a hash is also so important that it has its own notation, So I'm saying this to you because I want you to realize how important a hash is. So a hash, you're gonna use curly brackets to create a hash. An array, you're gonna use square brackets, but we're not talking about arrays. I just wanted to realize how important they are. So now that you know that these lines are equivalent, also something else that we can do, this is not the only way to initialize a hash. You could also do it like this. So it doesn't really matter that there are empty lines in there. Now you see this funny notation here with this arrow that I told you, right? So the fact is that this is a valid notation. So I could go ahead and say that thickness, let's say thickness, and then is I don't know, thin. Thickness is thin, whatever that means. And now if I run this, you're gonna see that thickness is there, it's a key. So there are two ways of defining a key, and this is one of it. So it's you're gonna use this way when you are initializing the hash. So when you are first initializing it, you can use this, some people call this a fat arrow. Yeah, I don't know, a fat arrow, but it's you think about this as an arrow. So you cannot do this. This is you cannot have a space in between. This is not an equal of, yeah, this is an equal sign and this is a larger than sign, but when they are combined together in Ruby, they form a totally different symbol. Ruby takes this as a different thing, and this is an arrow. If you look at it, it looks like an arrow, right? So you're saying that thickness, the key thickness is thin, and if you want to do more, you could say color is, let's say purple, and then we save this and you run it, and then you see that color is blue, all right? However, if I remove this, so let me comment it, so it's not going to be executed. Now we can see that it's purple. That's because as when you, for instance, when you're dealing with variables, the last value that you assign to it is going to be the value that's going to be there. So at this moment, let's say at line 8 here, the value of color inside conf was purple. If we put it here, let's put here so I can show this to you. But I guess you already know this. So it's going to print 3 times. Oh, I forgot to save the file. So you see in different moments, it has different values. And now let me show you something else. Instead of saying that color is yellow, let me say that conf.delete color. So now what is going to happen is you're going to see that at this moment color is going to be purple, and then we are printing this line, all right? And then at line 11, what this delete is saying is that it's deleting the key called color. So this color here is being wiped out, it's being removed, it's being deleted from this hash. Therefore, when we print it here on line 13, it's only going to print this because color does not exist anymore. It's like we are, if you think about a variable, you can declare a variable, but you can never undeclare a variable. But inside a hash, you can undeclare a key. You can remove, delete a key. And this is what delete does. So color was here deleted, it's not here anymore. And however, when we just start using it again, then suddenly it starts existing again. And it has the value of blue, which then printed here on line 17. So this is the essence of hashes. It's really simple. There's not much of a complication to it. Also, just to finish it, I want to say that we have here on the left side, we have strings. And on the right side, we also have strings. However, we could have like a number here. Like thickness is 30. Let's say thickness is 30. And if you pay attention to it, you're gonna see that this, if I put it in a string, it's gonna be different, right? So here you have the double quotes, but if it was when it was an integer, you didn't see the quotes. So you can have the value being a number. Also, you can have the key being a number. So now you could think that this is an array, right? Because now if you want to get the color, so here I'm adding color. Let's say that 40 is blue. So think about it. Think about it. This looks like an array, but in fact it's not. So the key can be a string. I told you that, and I also told you that the string can be an integer, and the value can be anything. However, the actual fact is that the key can also be anything. So the key can be anything. The key can be an array. So the key could be an array. You could say that. Take a look at that. So that's crazy, right? Yeah, that's kind of crazy, and it's not common for this to be used. But this key, which is an array itself, is there. So the key can be anything. The key could be an array, which is just odd, but maybe it has its applications. It's not common, definitely not common, but it's still doable. And if you want to delete it, you could just come over here and you see you're deleting the key, which is the array 40 and 20, which is different than the array 20 and 40, of course. So you see, you're trying to delete something that is not there, and it's just not deleting anything. It's just ignoring. Anyway, this is the basics of hashes. I hope you got it. I hope you could understand what it works, and I hope you can go ahead, read the documentation for it, take a look on the available functions, and practice yourself. That's it for this lesson. See you next time.